things have calmed down somewhat since Nationals has ended, but before I get back to making my normal videos, there is one thing that I promised to do which I haven't done yet, and that is review the Specialized Roubaix that I rode in the run-up to the National Champs. The reason it's taken me so long to get this review done is that it's a bike that I actually struggled to wrap my head around. My brain was saying one thing on the bike, but how I felt on the bike was completely different. As a racer, I like racing bikes. I like fast, responsive, aggressive bikes. And to be honest, comfort doesn't really come into that for me. If a bike is fast, awesome. If a bike is fast and comfortable, even better. But I don't seek out comfort when it comes to bikes. And the new Roubaix was unlike anything I have ever ridden. Before we get into what I thought about the bike, let's look at the specs. The bike I rode was the Roubaix Expert Di2 with a tarmac black charcoal paint job. The wheel set was the DT Swiss R470 disc with 12 by 142mm through axles. The group set was the Shimano Ultegra Di2 with hydraulic disc brakes with a 160mm rotor in the front and 140mm rotor on the rear. The seat post was the CGR seat post by Specialized with a Phenom Expert perched on top. It also comes with a SWAT box which houses your tube, multi-tool, CO2 canister, all that kind of stuff down at the bottom of the frame. The biggest change to the Roubaix is that they've removed the Zert inserts from the previous version of the Roubaix, and instead they've found compliance through the seat post and what Specialized is calling the Future Shock. The Future Shock is a spring-based suspension system above the head tube that provides 20 mils of suspension travel. Now you know what the bike looks like, let's talk about the ride. And this is where it took me right out of my racing box and put me into a whole new world of comfort. Let's start with the frame geometry. The geometry is slightly more relaxed than the Venge and the Tarmac, but the bike still feels really nimble and fast. The head tube with the built-in Future Shock means that the front end is a little bit taller than what I'm used to, but not more so than about a centimeter or two. It did make for a really comfortable position on the bike with a slightly bigger front end. With the Future Shock placed above the head tube, it doesn't negatively affect the handling. The front wheel feels planted, and in general the bike descends and corners really well and gives you confidence in the bends. It was also my first outing with disc brakes on a road bike, and I found them really easy to adjust to. The biggest benefit with the disc brakes is the increased modulation. With rim brakes, there are only 3 stages of braking: light, speed scrubbing braking, hard braking, and then terror braking, where you're just braking as hard as possible. You don't care about the effects of the handling, you just need to stop as soon as possible. With disc brakes, there seems to be the appropriate braking for every situation. Light braking, medium hard braking, and there's even extra power in full panic mode, which means you can stop that little bit quicker. All of that means under braking, with disc brakes you feel slightly more in control than you do with rim brakes. Now let's talk about compliance, because after all, that's what the Roubaix is designed for. The seat post is amazing, and it's probably my favorite thing on the bike. The narrower diameter, the flared seat tube, the shape, and the lower fixing point all mean that it soaks up bumps like crazy. It is incredibly comfortable. The Future Shock was the part of the bike that I found toughest to pin down. When you're seated with most of your weight back on the bike, the shock works amazingly. Half the time you even forget that it's there. You're just riding along on what feels like an incredibly smooth road. And it's only when you really look at the shock cover that you see it vibrating up and down, just working away, making your ride exceptionally smooth. In the saddle, even when you're climbing, it doesn't bob up and down, it just does its job and just absorbs the bumps on the road. It really is incredibly comfortable. Out of the saddle though, the shock does dip as you place extra weight on it, and the same thing happens under hard braking, but not to the same extent. Those two things were only annoying when I was consciously thinking about them though. The minute I stopped thinking and just rode, I didn't really notice them that much. Under heavy braking, the handling remains predictable, and when you're out of the saddle, the shock is more compressed with the extra weight on the front end, but it remains compressed, so there's no crazy barb or anything like that. It's just more compressed. If you're looking for a comfortable bike with responsive geometry, this bike is definitely for you. The part I struggled with, and this is the racer side of me, is that every time I saw that handlebar move, I think, oh man, I'm losing speed through the Future Shock. But when I look back at some of the speeds that I was doing during my hard training efforts, that didn't really seem to be the case. The bike was still really fast, and even with a shock on the front end, was a really reasonable weight as well. When I stopped thinking about the bike and just rode, it was amazing. I had this massive smile on my face. It was comfortable, it was nimble, it was fast. It really was a fun bike to ride. When I turned my brain on and started analyzing the suspension while climbing, descending, cornering, the bike became a lot less fun. Focusing too hard on it just made it lose its magic. So instead of analyzing every sensation, just switch your racing brain off, look at the views, choose a rough road, bunny hop everything in sight, and just enjoy riding like every piece of road is a perfect piece of tarmac.
You were the